Hello. Today I'm going to present on browser web components or custom elements. Um, Last presentation I did was on keyword tags that you see for a lot of apps these days. And what I decided to do was uh, kind of riff off of that. And as my custom element for this project and presentation, I made a keyword tags web component, um, and I can go ahead and show that right now. So let's add another TV show in here, and of course you can delete as well. Um, really powerful stuff. Like I was saying in the last presentation, keyword tags. There's a certain UX thing that goes on that's pretty powerful. Um, so um, I wanted to create a browser web components esque keyword tags component, and and to get into how I did it, I'm going to kind of go through the main stepping points of what it took to create the issues that I encountered, and what was the evolution that led to the final product that I have. Um, so what I tried doing first was nested components, and we can look at that now. So, like you can see here, I wanted to, don't look at this part. So right here, I wanted to have the subcomponent be a keyword tag, if you will, and have that be the method for pre-populating the keyword tags component. Um, and You're probably wondering a bit about the jargon here. Um, uh, Slots. What they're doing here is using. I was using slots to dynamically insert content into the keyword tag component, and I can go ahead and just explain that really quick. It'll be good to go over. Uh, so, um, well, number one, you have your custom component, and it looks roughly like this. This is the constructor for it, um, and you can do component setup, and then afterwards inform browser of the component so that it can be instantiated correctly. And where slots come in is one can, well, slots could actually work hand in hand with what are called templates. So with templates, there's you can have a I'm pretty sure it's a template tag. You have an ID, something I'm just going to use foo for filler, and where slots come in is, per instance of the custom element, you can have dynamic content. So the way it is typed up would be something like this. And so this template is actually, it can be used as the base for the component setup, the DOM template. And then in the HTML code, where you have your actual app, you're going to have an instance of pop-up info that would look something like this. And here's where the slot part comes in. You can dynamically insert content. And in the case of this pop-up info example I have here, the dynamically inserted content is alert. Please forgive me. This is a rough code here, but explains the core concepts of custom components fine. So getting back, crawling or going back up the chain of thought that we went down. I was dynamically inserting the value of the keyword into the tag. And you can see here is the template for keyword tag. And keyword tags. And the interesting part that, okay, so there's a few things going on here. So there's a separate shadow styling for each component within our nested component structure. And actually, I need to explain the shadow DOM first. Okay, so the shadow DOM is essentially an isolated document object model where the styling that is applied is only the styling that goes with the component. And using templates, you can actually nicely package a style tag with all of the associated styling that goes with your custom component. And the big benefit is that this code won't influence same CSS classes outside of the component, which is very useful. So what was happening with my nested structuring, my nested web component structuring, was this. So I wanted to have a template bundle for the keyword tag and keyword tags, and I found that you could only have slots work if you used a shadow DOM, and I actually explained that down here. So in the keyword tag class, I tried doing an appending to the keyword tag custom component, uh, and not to a newly created shadow DOM. And the slots didn't work unless I had a shadow DOM. So essentially, what the nested structuring led to was a need for the root shadow DOM, which was the keyword tags component, and then for this one, the keyword tags component, and then for every keyword tag subcomponent, there'd be another shadow DOM created. So children shadow DOMs, and what this led to was me discovering some odd behavior with uh, inheritance between shadow DOM um, inheritance between shadow DOMs. So what's interesting is this styling, font family and color, which is styling that inherits, was actually influencing the sub DOM of the keyword tag. And what was not working was EMs. So, it would have been great if EMs did work along with font family. And I wrote the same code in normal CSS with no shadow DOM just to test that EMs worked as expected with everything the same but no shadow DOM. And EMs was working off of the container element that had font size. And that just wasn't happening. So the delete button at the X would not get smaller or larger along with our container font size getting smaller or larger. But so that was odd behavior, even though inheritance was working, and what it led to me to see was that um, it seemed a bit backwards to have um, different shadow styling DOMs all for this one main component, and this weird odd behavior with styling just led me to nix this nested structuring. So that's that. Now the next talking point I'm going to go over is why is the shadow DOM helpful? So um, generic classing leads to issues the more complex an application gets with its styling. So something like content paragraph is really over controlling of code in the future that is coded in the app, and months down the line there might be some P nested in a new feature that's nested in a content class somewhere in your app, and this automatically just specifies the margin. So right off the bat you're seeing some arbitrary styling that is almost always going to be undesired and need to be corrected. So you're going through like this cycle of having to correct code because of how this generic classing and so forth is wrecking things. So the one great solution for this uh, is to do what's called box element modifier uh, system. And with box element modifier, it's a way that helps explain the element, keeps things structured well, and stops the issues seen with the generic classing. So let's say the box is usually the name of the feature. So let's say we're doing like a pop-up. You'd start off with the name of the class as pop-up, do these two underscores to then write out the name of the element, like pop-up header, and then perhaps have a modifier like show. And what this does is make it so that you don't have a pop-up class and a header class, and leading to this issue where somewhere down the line, if you did the opposite, like pop-up header, or even worse, pop-up and then code for it, well, you're setting up the code base for being wrecked in the future, just like I was explaining up here. And what this does is give a much more specific name of the class, and is quite helpful. It leads to the over controlling issue happening much less. And if it does happen, it's okay, because it'll happen once in 1,000 occurrences. So what is great is Shadow DOM came along and made it so that you can write stuff like pop-up or header within the styling of the Shadow DOM, and the rules that are assigned to these classes will only apply to the elements in the Shadow DOM of the custom element, or just the Shadow DOM applied somewhere in the main DOM. So that explains the history of CSS woes, and I guess you could call it the history of the woes of general classes and the solutions. Number one, box element modifier. Number two, Shadow DOM. So pretty cool stuff. What to talk about next? Let me think here. Okay, yeah, just like I was saying, the nested structuring wasn't working. And of course, this is styling that applies to the Shadow DOM for keyword tags. And now I'm going to show my new code. The code that actually delivered the demonstration of the keyword tags at the beginning of the presentation. So here it is. I have it as just one component, no nesting, probably the way I should have done in the first place, since I'm having my first foyer into custom web components, and I dove a little bit too deep. Just start. So keyword tags component, I'm pre-populating with this method of adding some attributes, Billings and Westworld. Um, and here is the... So what was kind of cool was I was able to do two templates. So, there's going to be repeat code with the keyword tag. So this is the structure for it. And here's the template for the containing keyword tags. I did a pretty good amount of CSS, a lot of adjustments. I wanted my keyword tag to look clean. And this walks me into the next issue that I was seeing, which is I noticed there was duplicating of code between global CSS and the shadow CSS for the keyword tags component, mainly font family sans serif. And it'd be great if one wouldn't have to change this in two places. So I'm going to go over to the global style now. See here, there's font family sans serif here, and font family sans serif here. And this goes against the coding best practice of single source of truth. So even though Shadow DOM helps with having isolated styling, one big issue I noticed with Shadow DOM is you're going to have to change things in two places between your shadow CSS and your global CSS at times. So it's one issue that I noticed in my first dive into browser web components. And one thing to mention is I did research if you could have a Shadow DOM inherit some CSS from the global DOM or global styling. Can Shadow DOM elements inherit CSS? And there was this whole answer for it. And then a note at the top, which was added later, no longer relevant. The features that were brought up, that were done to resolve the inheritance, were deprecated. And that's that. One other interesting aspect that I came across was that's my old code. So I did. Where is it? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So here's my code for add tag, and so the tag. So this tag template is I believe it's keyword tag template. Let me see. Yeah. So the keyword tag template, which has the X and the text for the keyword inside of it. The way that um, you append an instance of the keyword tag is by getting the template and the content and cloning node, right? And it's actually not a node that's returned, it's what's called a document fragment. And you can see here, clone node is a document fragment. The thing is you can't add event listeners to document fragments. So I had to do a little bit of acrobatics with appending the document fragment here, and then getting the last tag once it was appended to my keyword tags DOM element, and then adding an event listener, which is when a click occurs, remove the tag. So the delete functionality. A good thing to know about uh, browser web components is, or more specifically, making nodes off of templates. You actually don't have a real DOM node. You have this document fragment, which becomes real after it's appended. So cool stuff. Good to know when dealing with coding browser templates. All right, that is it for my presentation. I have a conclusion, though, a finale. So it was great to code at a level where I'm closer to the browser. My development process was iterate, refresh, didn't have to worry about web packing or front end framework code, not having to have a system where I include a library for how the front end coding is done, and that was great. But of course, web components and their subtooling for web components, like templates and Shadow DOM, are not yet fully supported by all browsers. Some browsers are in the process of developing the features, and one browser is actually not even there yet with deciding they're going to do all of the web component feature and its subtools. And in the meantime, before all browsers do complete these web component features, one can use Google Polymer's scripts to basically fill in the gaps and make the functionality as expected. But the issue is you're going back to square one with your need to link libraries just like you would for a front-end framework. So it's probably going to be fine if all of the major browsers end up sometime in the future developing all of the web component and related features. But if you look here, Internet Explorer Edge, they are considering, they're still considering doing some of these features. So, of course, we're in danger not having a situation where uh, we're in danger of a situation where we do have to link in our some code to make the web components work, as opposed to just have them all work in all browsers without any linking of helper libraries. So there's that. Also, of course, I said I was concluding, and I'm doing a final act actually. So HTML imports, they mentioned it here, right? That is taking it will allow one to have the template be modularized and its own HTML file, which is of course the way to do things as a matter of reusability, and not having all your code in one HTML file. So that is something else to mention. And one last point is, if I had to ask myself a next step for my mini project of browser web components and keyword tag component, what would I do? And that would be, of course, data binding of the tag values. How one would go about doing that. An easy way, of course, would be to have a submit button, and when submit occurs, you have a grabbing of the values and whatever the submit action is. An even better way would be to have an even better way would be to have something like two-way data binding, where if the data is changed somewhere and the values are bound to that data, then they would update in the input area. And then, of course, the opposite, which is if the user just enters the data in the input area, then the data would update to the main domain data. And that's it. Thanks for